So, you want to play Yu-Gi-Oh, but you aren't familiar with how anything works? Well, you've come to the right place, my friend. Now, before I start, I just wanted to say that Master Duel and Duel Links have different rules from one another, so I'll be making separate videos about them. For now, I'll be covering the rules in Master Duel. Master Duel does follow the standard modern Yu-Gi-Oh rules, but it has its own ban list separate from the TCG and OCG. TCG means trading card game, and OCG means original card game. With that out of the way, time to cover the basics of Yu-Gi-Oh! In Yu-Gi-Oh! The minimum amount of cards you can have in your deck is 40, with the maximum being 60. You can only have 3 copies of one card, unless the rules say otherwise, as there's many cards in Master Duel that are limited or even banned. You also have another deck known as the Extra Deck. This is where specific cards will go, which I will explain in a separate video. For now, all you need to know is that you can have a maximum of 15 cards in that deck. In Yu-Gi-Oh! You have monster cards, spell cards, and trap cards. We'll focus on monster cards first, as this is what you'll be using the most. Monster cards have the following information on them: attack, defense, star level, attribute, a description or effect, and what type they are. We'll go further into detail about the attribute and types in another video. Time to discuss the star level. In Yu-Gi-Oh! If you have a monster whose level is 1 to 4, you can summon that without a tribute. However, if the star level is higher than 4, then you have to do something called tribute summoning. What this means is, you have to have a monster out in play first before you can summon your stronger monster. If you don't have any monsters out, you cannot summon that card. When you tribute summon, you send the required number of cards you control to the graveyard. The graveyard looks like this in Master Duel. I'll talk more about this board in another video. Back to the star levels. Level 5 or 6 monsters require 1 tribute. Level 7 or higher monsters require 2 tributes, unless the card description says otherwise. Now, what are monster effects? Well, these are triggers that can only be activated when certain conditions are met. However, it's important to note that not every monster effect works this way. Some effects can go off instantly, whilst others require your opponent to make a move. Therefore, you should always read what the effect does before trying to use it or summon the monster with said effect. There are also monsters who might have something known as a quick effect. A quick effect is a type of monster effect that can be activated during either player's turn, as long as its conditions are met. We'll go deeper into timing and effect chains in another video. For now, just know what quick effects are more flexible. The next thing to cover is the monster's attribute. Now, just like with the types, this is not important most of the time, but it does become important when you're building specific decks, which, again, I will cover in another video. I'm trying not to overwhelm you with all of this information, and trust me, this is the bare minimum that we're covering today. Getting back on track, it's time to discuss the positions you can put your monster in. When you place your monster face up like this, it means that you're putting it in attack position. In attack position, your opponent can clearly see all of that monster's information. What does a defense position monster look like? Well, it can either be face up or face down. The monster will also be sideways, like this. You will do the same with your monster if you place it in defense position. Anyway, back to attack position monsters. When you and your opponent have the monsters in attack position, and either you or your opponent decides to attack, depending on whose turn it is, a calculation must be done. In Duel Links and Master Duel, this will be done for you. In the TCG or OCG, the calculation will not be done for you. However, I'll give you an example on how the calculation is done. Let's say in this example, you have a monster with 18,000 attack, and your opponent has a monster with 12,000 attack. 18,000 minus 12,000 is 600. This is how much damage your opponent is going to take, as you had the higher attacking monster. Also, the opponent's monster will be sent to the graveyard afterwards. It's important to note here that you can only attack once with your monster, unless, of course, it has an effect that allows it to attack attack again. Now, that's what happens when both monsters are in attack position. But what if your opponent's monster is in defense position? Let's take a look at how that works. When you attack a monster in that position, your opponent has to flip it upwards, unless the card was already flipped. So you can see how much defense it has. There, another calculation will be made. In this example, let's say your monster has 2000 attack and the opponent's monster has 3000 defense. You'll take 1000 points of damage, known as battle damage, and your monster will be destroyed and sent to the graveyard. Your opponent's monster will stay in the field and they'll take no damage at all. But what happens if your monster had a higher attack damage? In that case, you would destroy that monster, but your opponent won't take any damage, unless the monster you control has something known as piercing damage. Piercing damage means your opponent takes the battle damage equal to the difference between your monster's attack and the defending monster's defense. If you need a moment to process all of that, then that's fine, as we still have a lot to cover in this game, and all of this can feel very overwhelming. But you want to know what the worst part is? I'm not even done yet. There's still a lot more mechanics and details I need to cover, such as life points, phases, spell and trap cards, and a lot more. But I think this video has gone on long enough. So join me in the next video where I'll talk about what these mechanics are in detail. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.